Hi guys, it's Rory here at Oliver Bernard. Thanks very much for joining us for another Golang in London. Today I'm speaking to Nikola, who is another self-taught Go developer who now does a range of online courses and things around it as well. So should be an interesting talk. So thanks for joining me, Nikola. How are you doing today?
Thanks for your invitation. Great, actually. It's far difficult to manage all the things because of things that happen right now in the world, but we are successful in any way, so it's fine.
Cool, sounds good. So if you want to give a brief introduction to yourself and your background, that'd be great. I appreciate you worked a lot with Java and C++ previously and have now transitioned into Go a number of years ago. So yeah, if you could speak through that briefly, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. Well, technically, I'm working with programming for last around 12 years. For 8 years, I'm doing that for let's say, professionally. Last 3 years, slightly more than that, I'm working with Golang in, let's say, background. I have C++ and Java. Long time I was developer of Java, and then I literally everything that I did translate to Golang for many different reasons. First two would be probably much cleaner code, and the second, uh, for me, for my kind of thinking and everything else, Golang was perfect language for me. So technically, everything I do right now is based on Golang. I don't do Java anymore.
Okay, makes sense. And as I mentioned earlier, I know you do a lot of online training courses and things that I've seen over LinkedIn. What exactly does that entail? And with that, what sort of general hints and tips do you have for anyone who is looking to work with a language for the first time?
Yeah, well, when we talk about Golang community, the fact is that, let's say, from now on, we need to create some sort of different environment, because most of the courses and lecturing and books that we have right now are basically for developers who are actually a long time in programming. So that's some sort of difficulties in first starting point for people that literally want a new beginning or some sort of new things that they want to learn. So because of that, I created a playground for Golang fundamental things. So new people that has any previous experience with Golang can join our community, and so they can learn from starting point the nature of Golang. So technically, uh, for me, the first thing that they need to know is why I use Golang. Because if we are doing something and we don't have a clue why we are doing or why we are learning those kind of things, I think that's very bad for starting point. So technically, that's why I created the first playground for Golang, and it will be much more in the near future. But for this starting point, uh, probably it's the best that we grow our community with new fresh people. I know that in the near future we will have developers who will, let's say, translate from Java or Python or any other programming language to Golang. But I think that we need actually on global scale new people that will join to our community. Because of that, we must, let's say, be more approachable, and we need to have many different type of resources so they understand many different things on start. Without that, I'm afraid that we will have a much difficult way than we really need it. So that's why for for Golang is best way for now that we share many different things, and we need to explain people why Golang is language of the future. That's not my thinking. That's even now it's reality, especially for some other development sector, especially for cloud, especially for automatization, and then especially for web. So
Okay.
technically, I know we cannot cover right now extremely amount of things, but for start, we can let's say mention some things that are very important for the start. So technically, why people asking on start to me, okay, why Golang? So technically, the first three things which I really need to mention is that Golang is extremely powerful language with extremely high performance, because we have a compiler which is doing that great. Golang is literally created for very large scale of systems. Uh, it has very clean code, and for me, which I really like to write a native, literally code without any frameworks, it fits like a dream. So technically, those kind of things are very useful, and scalability, which can be very effective, which we can build with Golang, is extremely huge. So the second thing, which is let's say the question which is most common, is that can we do everything with Golang? Can I use Golang and literally do everything that I need with that programming language? Uh, the the answer on that question would be that probably you can't. Why? Because beside of Golang, I'm still using C++. So why then do I need C++? There are some things which programmers from other let's say communities talk about Golang, and that's fine. It's totally fine. Uh, because of many things, I agree with them, especially when they talk about generics, and it's fine. I know that we don't have. We have some solution to solve that, but yet there are some situation which yet we cannot solve with Golang, and that's reality. That's not a big secret, and it's fine. But because of those kind of things, uh, I'm still using, and I will still use C++ as a secondary programming language, so I connect C++ with Golang. So technically, how we do that? Well, basically on web architecture, which we are doing right now, are REST API, and it's fine. But for most of the things, we are using gRPC. So it's a new protocol of which is developed by Google, and I noticed that even now there are not, let's say, a big amount of developers which really get deep inside of gRPC. They are not using yet in some large scale, and that's fine. I think that we have we need more time for that. But with gRPC, you can be extremely effective, and especially in scenario when you need to connect programming languages like C++ and Golang. There are many other programming languages which you can connect, and that's completely normal. You can use Java, Python, or whatever you want. But for those kind of let's say traffic, we are using gRPC, and it's extremely effective. So that's how we, let's say, manage things inside of architecture. Architecture that I'm using let's say, four different databases. I use PostgreSQL, I use Mongo, I use Redis, and I use Rethink. But for now, Rethink is not yet in production, and that's totally new thing which we want to, let's say, develop for right now. It's basically, you can go and check on engine DB information about Rethink. Technically, it's a database for real time, and with Golang, it is is extremely effective. So that's what we are doing. Let's say right now. When we talk about web, in generally speaking, uh, most of the time I use for now gRPC. There are some beneficial things, but there are some things which are not that effective with gRPC. For example, first thing, when you talk about gRPC, you will hear from developers it's much harder to test it.
Yeah.
And okay, it's fine. We understand the reality, but for people who really want to create architecture with very large scale, and I'm talk about probably in petabytes, definitely I would use in any case gRPC. And for those kind of things, people are just trying to get high performances with less spending of resources, and that's the effective way. I mean, when you get to those kind of architecture, I'm literally every time talk even to my students. There is no easy or hard task. Task is a task. You can do it or you cannot. If you can't do it, find a way how you can, or find the guy or someone or some professor, mentor, whatever, take a private class and take the knowledge from the people who are literally doing that, and just find a way how you can create. So that's how I do it. So there is no easy or hard task. Task is just a task. So just do it, and that's pretty much the thing. So when we talk about another, let's say, communities, uh, I thought that I saw that there is some. It's not a kind of conflict, but people always compare uh, different type of things, and they want to prove that someone is better from the others. I think that from the starting point, it's bad for any community. I think that people need to give valuable things to people so they can understand what's the beneficial of that way that they are using. Not I'm not trying to compare in any way Golang, for example, with Python.
Yeah.
I've used Python. I'm not Python developer. I know for, let's say, my understanding and my using, so I can read some code from the other developers. But I just don't want to compare performances and stuff like that, Python in Golang, because very soon when you get inside of industry, you will see the difference. And I think it's beneficial and very important that people understand those kind of things for themselves. And
Yeah.
that's the prime thing which wanted to mention, because but for me, I can say why I don't use Python and Java anymore. but I'm not trying to explain to people that they need to stop to do that, because that's not how development world works in any way. I stopped to work Java because I think that Golang code is much cleaner, much effective. It can work in much larger scale, and the scalability and meaning of Go routines and stuff like that are extremely beneficial to me. I extremely love tools which I build for automatization, and probably for most of the things, that's why the prime reason Golang is now, even now, the prime language of the cloud vendors. So that's the primary reason. When we talk about Python, I'm just a developer, and developers around me are searching for much higher performances and scale. The architecture that I'm doing, Python with architecture and stuff that he can do, cannot satisfy me. That's that's the reason. I'm not trying to tell the people just stop to doing whatever you're doing right now and stop everything what you do with Python, because I think that's totally wrong.
Yeah.
So I just can explain why I'm using. In any case, I think that if you want to be great developer, in any case, in any way, you need to realize that you must explore many different areas, many different programming languages, so you can understand the nature, what you are looking for, what you need, and how to create your path so you can execute your idea. Because I think that idea written on the paper without execution is it's just your illusion and nothing more than that. So if you cannot execute your idea, find a way how to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's extremely beneficial that literally developers on starting point explore many different things when they have time, because when they enter the industry and when they enter in many large architecture and scale, probably most of the time they won't have a time, and that's the reality. So technically there are, for example, 5 different languages beside of these that I'm using right now, which I explored so I can understand the nature of them, and maybe that nature will, I don't know, give me some new ideas.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, and I appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and I definitely agree with the point that it's good for people to have a look at as much information as they can and then decide what might be best for them. So that's great. What we'll do is when I post this video, I'll include the links to your to the courses that you've been running yourself as well, so people can look into it in a bit more detail. But yeah, really interesting starting points about the language and your personal journey with it. So thanks very much for your time today, Nikola. Yeah, been really insightful, and we'll speak soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers.
See you. Bye.
Bye.